The Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption insisted there is enough basis to indict Senator Antonio Trillanes IV for inciting to sedition, alleging that the statements he made to the media criticizing and throwing invectives against the president is not covered by privileged communication. May Bermudez will tell us why.
An intent to sow hatred, anger, and contempt against the president. This was how lawyers from the Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption described the actions of Senator Antonio Trillanes IV after President Rodrigo Duterte issued a proclamation nullifying his amnesty. The VACC filed a criminal complaint for inciting to sedition before the Pasay City Prosecutor's Office, alleging Trillanes called on the armed forces to turn their backs against the Duterte administration. Trillanes invoked privileged communication in his defense, but the VACC lawyers disagree.
Kami ay nag-cite ng mga decisions ng Korte Suprema. Ang pinakamalakas dyan ay yung Antonio Trillanes IV versus Marigomen. Sinabi ng Korte Suprema in very clear language na hindi privilege or sakop ng immunity ng isang senador yung mga media interviews niya.
Halos araw-araw, halos oras-oras nagpapa-interview siya. At sa mga sinasabi niya, sinabi na nga ni Attorney Luna, yung mga invectives against the President, yung mga sinasabi niya, siraulo si Duterte, tatanga-tanga si Duterte. Mayroon pa siyang sinasabi na dahil doon, may suporta siya sa military.
In his counter-affidavit, Trillanes defended himself and said his media interviews are part of his duty as a public official and to give updates on issues like graft and corruption. Inciting to sedition under the revised penal code is encouraging to rebel against authorities in form of speech, proclamations, writing, and other forms of representation. But privileged communication and freedom of speech and expression guarantee the right to criticize officials under the Constitution. The prosecutor's office has given Trillanes' legal counsel until November 22 to file their rejoinder. May Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
It's been 5 years since the destructive typhoon Yolanda hit the Visayas region. But until now, scores of families are yet to transfer to government housing units and some have yet to receive financial aid. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
It was in November 8, 2013 when a powerful typhoon Yolanda devastated several towns in the Visayas region. The monstrous storm caused immense damage, heavy flooding and storm surges that submerged many areas including Tacloban City. 5 years later, life in Tacloban have changed, but landmarks and memorials of the destruction can be seen around the city. The city government commemorated the 5th year since Yolanda's onslaught with wreath laying at the Astrodome grounds and Yolanda Memorial candlelight. Sky lanterns will also be flown tonight in Balyuan grounds. But the group People's Surge marked the anniversary with protests, calling on the government to fast-track the rehabilitation in areas badly hit by the storm. People's Surge Acting President Dr. Efleda Bautista says the government has yet to make good on its promise to completely build safe housing units and to provide a 5,000 peso financial aid for each victim, as previously promised by President Rodrigo Duterte.
Pabilisan yung reconstruction pabahay, dapat by December tapos na. Pero Presidente, ang sabi ng NHA, 2019 pa at ng 2000 matatapos yon. Pero ang natatapos naman po ay hindi talaga pwedeng bahayan, hindi pwedeng puntahan dahil hindi pa tapos, dami pang ayusin at saka yung substandard nga.
The group also calls on the government to focus on the recovery of Yolanda hit areas. For its part, Malacañang says the government is still working on securing land settlements as well as permits and licenses for the construction projects they lined up as part of the rehabilitation project. The palace hopes to complete the rehabilitation in 2 years.
Is the president or the government has a timeline for these housing projects to be completed?
It's ongoing. It's ongoing.
We don't have a timeline, sir. When do we expect this to be fully completed?
Well, hopefully within the year or 2 years. Depends on the situation, as I pointed out in my statement.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Malacañang believes that the government committed no violation when police and military arrested National Democratic Front consultant Vicente Ladlad for alleged illegal possession of firearms. Leah Ilagan tells us why.
Malacañang maintains that the arrest of NDF consultant Vicente Ladlad was in no way a violation of the provisions of the Joint Agreement on Safety and Immunity Guarantees or Jasig. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo stresses that Jasig is not enforced at this time because the peace process between the Philippine government and the National Democratic Front of the Philippines has already been terminated. This means also, according to Panelo, that a warrant of arrest is not needed to arrest Ladlad.
The Jasig is operative only if there are peace talks ongoing, but that has been terminated by the proclamation of the President on November 23, 2017. Secondly, the crime of rebellion is a continuing crime, and therefore no warrant of arrest is needed for that.
Through a search warrant, police and military units raided the alleged safe house of Ladlad in San Bartolome in Novaliches. The warrant, served early dawn on Thursday, was issued by Executive Judge Cecilin Burgos of the Quezon City Regional Trial Court Branch 89 in connection with Ladlad's violation of Republic Act 10591 or the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulations Act. A number of high-powered firearms and ammunition were seized from the suspect, including electronic devices, some subversive document, and 2 flags of the Netherlands.
Yung mga documents na yan will all be subjected to document exploitation, being done jointly by the intelligence group of the PNP and the AFP. So, yan ay most probably dadalhin yan sa AFP.
Also arrested were 2 of Ladlad's staff identified as Alberto and Virginia Villamor. A few months ago, another NDF consultant, Rafael Bailosis, was arrested in Quezon City for alleged illegal possession of firearms. President Rodrigo Duterte decided to terminate the peace talks in November last year through Proclamation 360 because of the rebels' failure to display sincerity to the peace process by continuously attacking government troops despite the negotiation. Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
Malacañang defends the selection of businessman Dennis Uy and China Telecom Group as the provisional third major telco player in the country. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
The selection of Mislatel Consortium comprised of the group of businessman Dennis Uy and China Telecom as the new provisional major telecommunications player is legal according to Malacañang. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo says Mislatel passed the preliminary selection process of the National Telecommunications Commission. Malacañang also denies allegation that Uy's group was chosen as the lone bidder because of his connection to President Rodrigo Duterte. Critics of the Duterte administration questioned the expertise of Uy in the telco industry.
In the preliminary screening, that particular corporation of the president you mentioned, Dennis Uy, has passed it. From what I gather, the other bidders lack certain requirements. That is why that particular corporation won over them. As we all know, relationship, alliances, friendship do not matter with this president.
Some senators, meanwhile, welcomed the selection of the provisional third major telco player. In a statement, Senate Committee on Public Services Chairperson Grace Poe hopes the third telco will not disappoint millions of Filipinos who use the internet. Senate Majority Leader Juan Miguel Zubiri also echoes this statement.
Ang importante dyan ay may bigay nila ang napangako nila, which is high-speed internet, also yung mga clear connections, at dapat ma-roll out yan kaagad.
Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacañang.
The Philippine economy slows down to 6.1% in the third quarter of 2018, according to the National Economic Development Authority. Monokson explains why.
The Philippine economic performance grew by 6.1% in the third quarter of 2018, slightly below than the revised gross domestic product or GDP growth of 6.2% in the second quarter, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. The National Economic Development Authority says the slowdown could be attributed to lower food consumption in households, which only hit at 5.2% in the third quarter. In an economist's observation, consumers are now careful in purchasing products and are only inclined to buy necessities.
Well, they will buy less. Mas konti siguro yung bibilhin nila. Maybe malilimit perhaps sa mga basic items. So the other more non-essentials, baka magsasuffer yung mga sales ng mga companies na are into yung mga non-essentials.
Authorities also say the economy could have grown further in the present quarter if not because of high inflation, especially in food prices. NEDA assures they are taking up measures to address the situation, including persuading Congress to fast-track the passage of the rice tarification bill to bring down the price of rice by 2 to 7 pesos.
Food prices remain elevated. And that is why we are addressing this very strongly, addressing food prices. Yes.
Also contributing to the slowdown and making a dent in the economy are policy decisions, such as Boracay Island shutdown and the effects of the Typhoon Ompong last September. Despite the slower pace, the Philippines remains as one of the best performers in Asian economies, next to Vietnam and China. Malacañang, meanwhile, is convinced that the present economic situation remains good.
As explained by the Department of Finance and our other economic managers, the situation is improving. The inflation rate has plateaued, and there is no other way but down. Given the fact that the government has undertaken measures to neutralize the inflation rate, like flooding our country with food supplies, rice, and others. And if you have noticed, prices have started to come down.
NEDA is optimistic that the country's GDP will look up in the last quarter of 2018 with the help of the service and construction sectors amid ongoing infrastructure projects of the government under its Build, Build, Build program. Monhok Son, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Some senators are urging the Department of Finance to further study the provisions of the proposed second package of the tax reform for acceleration and inclusion, or TRAIN law. Nel Maribohok explains why.
Several senators have expressed concerns over the possible impacts of the Package 2 of the tax reform for acceleration and inclusion, or TRAIN law, being pushed by the Duterte administration. Under the said proposal, the corporate tax will be gradually reduced to 20% from 30%. Tax incentives given to some sectors will also be changed. Lawmakers fear this might lead to mass layoffs and investment losses when enacted into law.
We should sustain that momentum sa pagbaba po ng inflation before we come up with new tax measures or tax proposals that would scare investors or pull out investors from existing companies in the Philippines. Because what we don't want to happen is a perfect storm na mataas ang inflation tapos may loss of jobs.
Senate Majority Leader Juan Miguel Zubiri says further study is needed before this bill can be passed. Zubiri also says the said measure is not among the Senate's priority agenda when Congress resumes its regular sessions next week.
We are appealing to the Department of Finance that let's study first this measure very carefully. We can pass the other measures. There's the Train 3, Train 4 that are not inflationary.
The Department of Finance, however, allays the lawmakers' fears, saying the Train 2's effects are contrary to their concerns. Finance Undersecretary Carl Chua says that under the second package, investments and jobs will even grow and higher incentives will be given to firms who will invest in poor provinces.
What we hope is to encourage registered corporations to generate more and better jobs, be more efficient and competitive, locate in the countryside, introduce innovation, and to invest in agribusiness. Kaya yung allegations na package 2 or trabaho will lead to a loss of investment, closure of business.
The DOF also explains that 645 corporations or 336 sectors have benefited from tax incentives. Chuo adds the administration just wants to level the playing field for all Filipinos and investors.
At hindi natin alam kung magkano ang nakuha nila at wala pong libreng incentive. Kung may nakinabang po sa incentive tulad ng zero tax or reduced tax, ibig sabihin ay may nagbabayad yan. Normally, ang ordinaryong Pilipino ang nagbabayad.
The DOF believes they will be able to enlighten lawmakers on the provisions of the measure when the Senate continues its deliberation in the coming weeks. Nel Maribuho, UNTV News and Rescue, Senate of the Philippines.
The Philippines and Japan have finally signed the long-delayed loan agreement worth 18 billion pesos for the rehabilitation of MRT Line 3. John Nano explains why.
The governments of Philippines and Japan signed today the 38 billion Japanese yen or 18 billion peso worth of loan agreement for the rehabilitation of the Metro Rail Transit or MRT Line 3 after several years of delay. The agreement signed by the Department of Finance and the Japan International Cooperation Agency or JICA will pave the way for the formal entry of Japanese firm Sumitomo Mitsubishi Heavy Industries as the new maintenance provider of the MRT3. Sumitomo has started handling the maintenance of MRT3 since October. The Japanese firm is the original builder of MRT3 system and maintained it until 2012. The signing follows Thursday finalization of exchange of notes by the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Japanese ambassador to the Philippines. The exchange of notes details the MRT rehabilitation plans as part of the loan agreement.
With the exchange of notes on the MRT3 rehabilitation, to secure a better and safer commuting experience for our riding public. We shall see improvements in service efficiency, security, and convenience.
We all know that a safe, punctual, and eco-friendly transportation system is crucial for the Greater Manila area and the Philippines as a whole to realize sustainable economic growth and a more comfortable life for Filipinos.
The plan covers the replacement of new rails, general overhaul of trains, upgrading of power supply and signaling system, as well as replacement of elevators and escalators and development of train stations.
Help is on the way. The Metro Rail Transit Line 3 rehabilitation project will address the problem in a most comprehensive fashion. It will not only rehabilitate 1, 2, or 3 subcomponents of the rail line, it will rehabilitate them all.
We are pleased that we can contribute to the MRT Line 3 to become again a safe and comfortable train by using Japanese advanced rehabilitation technologies.
The rehabilitation is expected to increase the number of train sets in operation from 15 to 18 train sets per hour and increase the maximum speed to 60 kilometers per hour. The government targets to finish the rehabilitation on the first quarter of 2021. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
China's Belt and Road Initiative will be the forefront of President Xi Jinping's visit to the Philippines this month, according to Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Locsin. The official also denies reports on the possible signing of a joint oil exploration deal between the two countries during his visit. Rosalie Cos explains why.
President Rodrigo Duterte is set to meet with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping when the latter visits the country this month of November. According to Foreign Affairs Secretary Teddy Locsin, the two leaders will discuss the Philippines' participation in China's Belt and Road Initiative, and a memorandum of understanding will be signed during Xi's visit. Locsin added in a message that this is Xi's priority because the Philippines is the only ASEAN country that has yet to join the initiative aimed at linking Southeast Asia and South Pacific through massive infrastructure projects with multi-billion-dollar fund earmarked by the Asian power. The Chinese president is expected to visit the country this month after the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Leaders Meeting in Papua New Guinea. The DFA secretary, meanwhile, denies earlier reports that a deal on joint oil and energy exploration in disputed territories in the West Philippine Sea will be signed between the Philippines and China during Xi's visit. This is because the proposed deal is still under study. Meanwhile, according to Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, the President has yet to approve the bid to explore the service contract number 57 situated west of Calamian Islands in northwest Palawan. Cusi also clarifies that the said area is not included in the hotly contested parts of the West Philippine Sea.
Service contract number 57, and this is the issue of farming in for a company to be, because that service contract is owned by PNOCEC, and they needed a partner to pursue further exploration and exploitation if when time comes. So they've been looking for partners, and one partner that they have shown that interest is the SINOC.
Both Cusi and Locsin admit they have no idea whether Duterte and Xi will discuss the proposed joint exploration deal in the West Philippine Sea during their meeting. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacañang.
At Song of Praise, our ASAP interpreters are focused on their preparations for the upcoming Grand Finals night. Leslie Longbowen tells us why.
4 days to go till A Song of Praise or ASOP Year 7 Grand Finals, and interpreters are getting ready for the much-awaited night.
Kumbaga sa gera, yung composer, siya yung blacksmith, siya yung gumagawa ng espada. Kami yung gagamit ng espada sa laban. So ang prayer ko is mabigay ko yung best ko para magamit ko yung weapon na ginawa niya.
Meanwhile, interpreters themselves share their personal attachment and lessons learned from the entries they will sing.
The usual na nangyayari sa, alam mo yun, sa buhay Kristiyano natin na hinahanap natin yung presence ni Lord. So, dun ako nag-base na lang na para i-feel ko yung song.
What if kakalaban mo, andun ka na sa finish line mo eh. Ngayon ka pa ba hihinto? Parang gano'n. Meron ka namang Panginoon na pwedeng takbuhan.
Meanwhile, as of 4 p.m., Banal Mong Salita by LJ Manzano is leading in the online poll.
Banal mong salita, ang iyong pangako.
While Hiling by Jeffrey Lim has the most number of YouTube views. Voting will end on November 11 at 12 noon. ASOP Year 7 Grand Finals will be held on Sunday night at the New Frontier Theater. Leslie Lumboban, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Malacañang backs the proposal of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency to conduct mandatory drug testing for grade schoolers. This is following a survey of the social weather stations that shows majority of Filipinos believe children of 10 years and above should undergo mandatory drug tests. Let's find out why from Rosalicos.
A sizable number of Filipinos believe that fourth graders and above should undergo mandatory drug tests, according to a latest national survey. Results from a social weather station survey on September showed that 51% of Filipinos agree to the proposal of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency to conduct mandatory drug tests in schools involving children 10 years of age and up. In 1,500 respondents surveyed, 36% disagreed while 13% are undecided. The Republic Act No. 9165 or the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Law states that only random drug testing is allowed in secondary and tertiary levels. According to the Department of Education, there is a need to amend the law to include grade schoolers and to make the drug testing mandatory in schools. But the Malacañang thinks otherwise.
With this survey result, will this push the palace to actually support na i-amend yung law?
If there is a need for that, but I don't think there is a need for that because that is for the benefit of the family. I think all parents would welcome that. I will welcome it as a parent.
The palace also believes that parents will support the mandatory drug testing among grade schoolers if implemented.
There is a drug menace in this country that will be the basis. Parents patriae doctrine is another.
Police
that the
power.
state is responsible for the safety of the citizens in a country.
Meanwhile, the SWS survey also stated that 76% or most of the Filipino people are totally pleased with the campaign of the Duterte administration against illegal drugs. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacañang.
The Philippine National Police forms a special task group that will look into the case of slain human rights lawyer Benjamin Ramos Jr. The PNP says investigators have begun probing into Ramos's illegal cases and personal relations. Here's why from Victor Cosare.
A special investigation task force has been formed by the Philippine National Police to probe the case of attorney Benjamin Ramos Jr., who was shot dead by unidentified gunmen. Ramos, the Secretary General of the National Union of People's Lawyers Negros Occidental Chapter, was gunned down in Cabancalan City last Tuesday. The two perpetrators then fled the crime scene towards Cabancalan-Mabinay Road based on a CCTV footage obtained by the PNP.
Yun yung mga angles, na isa sa mga angles, yung pagiging part niya doon sa mga counsels ng victims doon sa Sagay.
Cabancalan City Police Officer in Charge, Superintendent Jonel Guadalupe, says police investigators have begun looking into cases that Ramos handled or assisted, including the murder of 9 sugarcane farmers in Sagay City last October 20. Authorities are also looking into Ramos's personal relations and possible family problems.
Di rin kasi natin ma-discount yung mga ganung possibilities na, pero initially sabi naman wala din daw naman silang problema regarding sa family, relationships, pera, ganyan.
Pero kaya isasama niyo pa rin yun?
Lahat, ma'am.
Investigation.
Maging parte sila lahat.
Police investigators are also working to secure the testimonies of witnesses. So far, 4 have already given their statement, including a woman named Maria who was with Ramos when the shooting happened.
Panigarilyo siya kay istorya kami ginapaubos siya lang siguro yung sigarilyo. Mulat ko ang tao nga nanaog sa motor nga nagdali-dali nga tapos yung sikida taya sa iya. Kidya naka-short lang, amo lang naka-jacket.
Police will use the testimonies they gathered in filing appropriate cases against the suspects. Victor Cosare, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Sandigan Bayan First Division is set to rule on the plunder case related to the pork barrel scam against former Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr. on December 7. The promulgation of the decision comes 4 years after the case was filed against Revilla. The former lawmaker has been facing plunder and graft charges since 2014 for allegedly conspiring with Janet Lim Napoles in funneling millions of pesos in Priority Development Assistance Fund to her fake non-governmental organizations in exchange for kickbacks. His cases were filed along with those against former Senators Jinggoy Estrada and Juan Ponce Enrile, who are both out on bail. Other corruption cases against former and current lawmakers relating to the alleged scam are pending at the Anti-Graft Court. The decision on Revilla's plunder case will be the first to come out among pork barrel scam cases. The Department of Justice welcomes the plan of the Public Attorney's Office to upgrade the Dengvaxia cases to murder. Grace Casin will tell us why.
Department of Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara today said that the Public Attorney's Office is free to formulate its charges. PAO Chief Attorney Persida Acosta said they are preparing the evidence they will be presenting to the DOJ to upgrade the Dengvaxia raps from reckless imprudence resulting in multiple homicide to murder. Respondents of the case are Sanofi Pasteur and former and incumbent officials of the Department of Health.
Yung elements of murder ay nandito na sa mga ebidensyang ito.
But Secretary Guevara said they will resolve the case on the basis of actual evidence. Some parents of the children who died after being vaccinated with Dengvaxia are crying for justice. The sons of Elena and Annalyn died almost a year ago today.
Kasi kasama ko pa siya papuntang PGH nakakapaglakad pa siya Pagbaba namin sa bus, wala na siyang malay. Akala ko tulog lang. Yung pala, nalagutan na siya ng hininga.
Mabigat po yung nangyari sa anak ko kasi yung anak ko po, naturukan na hindi man lang sila sa akin ang hingi ng paubiso. Nalaman ko po, patay na pati yung anak ko.
Presidential spokesperson Secretary Salvador Panelo said the palace vows to charge the people behind the Dengvaxia vaccine program. The palace also expressed its sympathies to the grieving parents. Panelo also assures that the president is monitoring the development of the case. Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The talents and skills of young video producers are highlighted once again today at the Cinebata 2018 announcement of winners. Jael Asayo will tell us why.
Cinebata, a video competition for and by children today, announced the winners for this year. More than 100 video entries from different TV networks, schools, and organizations were submitted to Anak TV Foundation for its Cinebata 2018 video competition, but only 9 entries were recognized and awarded today. One of the lucky winners is a 19-year-old student from La Verdad Christian College, Alwin S. Malonzo. Malonzo's 4-minute video entitled Captain is inspired by a true-to-life story of a boy in Pampanga whose dream is to become a ship captain. Because of the boy's life status, it seems it's going to be impossible. Things make it harder as boy's mother got sick and is until now bedridden. But being a captain of his own life, the boy pushed himself to the limit and went beyond the borders of trials and challenges to make the impossible dream possible. He worked hard to support his schooling while taking care of his mother at the same time.
Yung pong time na pinapakain niya po yung parents niya, kasi may sakit po yung parent niya doon. Tapos after niya pong kumain, yung pinagtirhan po ng parents niya, kinain po ng bata. Tapos after nun, pupunta na naman po siya sa trabaho para mag-work po siya.
This is now the second time in a row that a student from the Verdad Christian College, Apalit, Pampanga is recognized and awarded for their short video. Last year, Lansangan was awarded in the Cinebata 2017. That paved the way for it also to be awarded in the first Southeast Asia Pre-Chinese Video Festival for Children 2017. Among the 9 awarded best videos, 2 will be chosen as final entries for this year's Southeast Asia Video Festival for Children with the theme Everyday Heroes, which will be held on November 22 to 24 at the Manila Peninsula. Anak TV President Ms. Elvira Yapgo couldn't help being emotional in front of the members of the media because of the overwhelming support that the organization is receiving from the member networks and from different industries and sectors.
Pero sa tulong po ng bawat isa in their own little ways, we make it possible, we make it happen just because we believe in the creativity, we believe in the power of the children, we believe that they can make it happen because they are very sincere, they are simple, they are very innocent, and it's about time tayo po media, makinig po tayo.
JL Asayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Makati City.
And those are the reasons behind the stories in the second part of our newscast. Y News returns with William Thio. I'm Angelo Castro III. Good evening.